And I'm someone that has, over 20, almost 25 years of experience working with plants. I formally entered my study at 21 years of age.
Mhm.
And I started with a lot of purgative plants and fasting and cleansing. I was a raw foodist for a number of years. And I did a lot of long fasts in the beginning, like 20 days, 30 days. And
Yeah.
then at some point I gravitated towards the Amazonian medicine, and I was introduced to plant diets. And um, I've been here in Peru for about 15 years,
Mhm.
working, first doing a lot of diets on my own for many years. It was never my interest to be a teacher or a curandero. Um, my interest was curiosity,
Mhm.
curiosity that I had inside of myself for this work, and this passion that I had pushed me
Mhm.
to really go deep. So I'm someone that has a relatively large amount of experience with the plant medicine of Peru, the ancestral medicine, the folk traditions here. And apart from that, I also, before I was really working deep with Amazonian plants, I worked a lot with Chinese systems. So Taoist system and Taoist alchemy, Taoist meditation, Qigong, Neigong, Kung Fu, things like that. And that
Mhm.
was really one of my foundations, I started with that. So more recently, a lot of my study has been looking at the similarities of both of these systems, the alchemical systems of the Taoists and the systems here of the Amazon, which are very similar. Here in the Amazon, we use plant medicine the way the Taoists used before they had Chinese medicine, in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, codified and regulated. And they took, a lot of the energetic or magical side out of the old medicines, and they codified it into more of a clinical thing. And what we have here in the Amazon is, for me, it's so amazing because there's still the spiritual essence of it. There's still the spirit side, the magical side. We still have that here, and it's an integral part of, let's say, doing plant diets or doing this work. Yeah,
Right.
so it's really exciting for me, and I'm really happy to share and answer any questions you have. And feel free to to lead the interview on, and wherever you want to start, I'm ready to go.
Did you start with like a particular tradition and teachers from that tradition? Like, for example, with Shipibo curanderos or mestizos, or did you just start dieting on your own, or was it like a little bit of both the whole way?
Okay, so I started. I originally started this work on my own before
Hmm.
I got to the Amazon, as I mentioned before. And when I came to the Amazon, I was all over the place in the jungle. So I was first with the Shual tribe.
Hmm.
I was with the Witotos, the Bora, and also the Shipibo. I visited the Shahinkas. So I was going around in the beginning, I was going around just trying to find teachers and trying to find
Yeah.
knowledge. And yeah, so I had a lot of, a good experience and a lot of bad experience.
Hmm.
It was a big mixture. I was fortunate to meet a pretty famous mestiza curandera as well. When I first started, her name was Norma Panduro,
Hmm.
and she's pretty well known. I got to, be with Norma, and she taught me a few very important things in the beginning, and stuff that is like gold. She told me first one thing. She said, Gabriel, when you drink ayahuasca, you need to sing, because when
Hmm.
you sing, you will open your heart. And
Hmm.
that's it. And it was a very simple, lesson. And it took me actually a number of years to figure it out. But it was a very simple and very good one. Um, Also, she told me something interesting. She said, ayahuasca is not a religion.
Hmm.
It's the science of knowledge and wisdom. So she gave me some really good teaching. So it was a mixture, I was going all around, and eventually I settled in the Pucallpa area, And I was doing a lot of my own diets, and I was doing longer diets, months at a time. And I pretty much, ended up going off on my own,
Hmm.
just doing my own thing. And it was the result of a lot of problems I had with the different curanderos and the native
Right.
peoples that I had a lot of, as you mentioned, with the interviews that I did in Israel. I mentioned there. Yeah, it was a lot of difficulties, a lot of tough shots that I took.
Yeah.
And I was kind of at some point just really uninterested, became disenfranchised with the whole curanderismo here. And I
Hmm.
saw a lot of fakes, a lot of drunken curanderos that were lying and cheating and things like that, and
Yeah.
causing me problems. So I said, I just want to be by myself. And something else I'll tell you about that is, people ask me, well, who did you learn from and who are the best ones? And I'll tell you this, they weren't very few curanderos. There weren't so many curanderos because here in Peru you have a lot of machismo and you
Hmm.
have a lot of like envy and jealousy, right?
Right.
And enter curanderos. So who I found that taught me the most, about the plants were like the lumber guys, the jungle guys,
Hmm.
the fishermen, the friends that I made in the villages along the way
Yeah.
that were simple, humble people that didn't have ego. These are the ones that I'd go with them, like the lumber guys. They know all the trees more than the curanderos. Many of the
Yeah.
curanderos, let's say in Bocapa, they're super lazy. They don't even go into the jungle.
Yeah.
So these guys, I go running in the jungle with them. They're showing me these plants I've never heard of before, never seen
Hmm.
before. So I learned a lot from them. And also, I would say for the most part, I always gravitated towards the older women here. So the people like Norma, I had a number of friends that helped me. I had one woman, she was a curandera also, passed away, like Norma, about 9, 10 years ago. She gave me her whole cookbook uh, for for plant baths. So
Hmm.
she was a plant bath specialist, and she gave me just her whole. She taught me so much about plant baths, stuff I had no idea about. So also other ladies that I had met that were like hueseras, they taught me about many different things without ego, without any time wasting stuff, just really honest from their heart. So I
Yeah.
will say that for the most part, the women here really accepted me and gave me a lot of teachings.
Right.
Yeah. hmm So it's kind of, for me, it's kind of apropos to have met Reina Luz, and who I work with. She's my associate. We work together at Ampiri,
Hmm.
and she has a long history here at the Boiling River. She started out 25 years ago at Maintiacu as the cook,
Hmm.
and she's from the same area as Juan Flores. And then they went off. Her and her ex-husband went off, and she was one of the founders of Sanctuary Wishtin.
Uh-huh.
And after that, they separate, and many years go by, and she was, introduced to me by the previous owner of the land that I have at the
Hmm.
hot spring, at the river mouth. And they were best friends, Cruz Dolores and Reina Luz. They were really good friends. And one day Cruz said to me, "Hey, Gabriel, I have a good friend that's just like you, dieting all the time, drinking the plant medicine, and I want to introduce you to her."
Hmm.
So that's how I had the introduction with Reina, and we've been working together ever since. And for me, she's just a bundle of joy, and she's I never thought of this stuff in my wildest dreams, that I would end up with a giant hot river in my backyard and
Right.
working with this wonderful woman who's basically like my mother.
Yeah.
My mother passed away in 2006, and she really came in. She came in as a replacement and just gives me so much love. Like last year with the pandemic and all of that, I was alone almost the whole year dieting. And Reina came out. She was the only one. She'd come out and visit me and diet. She diet with me for a month, and
Wow.
it was really exciting. So that's a little background on how I started.
Yeah.
And I really just because I think I had such a deep foundation in other practices, like in
Hmm.
Taoism, Taoist medicine, Kung Fu, these type of esoteric practices. It gave me a very strong foundation, a lot of strength and mental conditioning. It was somewhat easier for me than many people to to go into the world of plant diets and plant medicine. And I found it like to be not so difficult in the beginning. It was somewhat easy for me to, have a diet of restriction on my diet, no salt, no sugar, no sex. I was already kind of doing that for many years.
Yeah.
So what changed though is with the Amazonian tradition is you are augmenting that process with a teacher plant. So you are
Yeah.
going in and instead of just fasting, water fasting, or doing prayer meditation, you are adding uh, another ingredient to the mix, which
Yeah.
could be, a root or a flower or a leaf or a big tree. It could be like a big palo that is sharing not just its physical properties, right? It's not just sharing the alkaloids and the tannins that are in the plant, but it's sharing its consciousness. It's sharing its vital
Hmm.
essence. It's sharing its energy, its consciousness. So this for me was a real like game changer, and it brought me to a place where I realized that I had to dedicate my life to this work. Yeah. Mhm.
Hmm. So one question that I have, since you've worked on your own, and so you have like good experience deciding what trees or what plants to diet, is that a lot of people these days are starting to do diets, and I think some people feel like they're called to a certain plant, or maybe they just read something on the internet about a certain plant and they think this sounds good. Um, do you have any advice, or maybe you can share your experience? Like, do you feel that each person has like certain plants or trees that are meant for them, or are, the right ones to diet for them at this time? And how can somebody figure that out, aside from having like a maestro tell them what they need to diet?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I'll tell you like this, right? In the beginning, when a person is first starts doing plant diets, they really need to focus, for me, they need to focus on foundation. They need to build basic strength in their body.
Hmm.
And to do that, and another important thing is cleansing. So we come from the world, the modern world is full of frequencies, it's full of radiation, EMF, Wi-Fi signals, radio signals, and information overload, television, media, news, movies, also communication overload. People were instantly connected now.
Hmm.
We don't have, when I was a kid growing up, we had snail mail.
Yeah.
Now, barely anyone even sends emails. I mean, we're
Hmm.
doing instant chatting and messenger. So the person really has an overload of all of this, and that's part
Yeah.
of the diet, is to go in and stop the input and rest from all that to seek some healing, right?
Yeah.
So the first diets I usually recommend for people are cleansing and detoxification diets,
Hmm.
purgative diets, where they can take plants to really clean out and create a space for the more heavier teacher plants to come in. And
Right.
I think it's a big mistake that people come, I see it all the time. I've been here for many years, and I see they come and give a person who's not ready, they give them some crazy heavy tree that's really advanced,
Hmm.
and the person just won't get it, or they won't get much benefit. They may get a
Yeah.
little something, but it's much better, in our opinion, Rain and myself, to start the person with cleansing and detoxification and prepare their body. And we have a saying for that here in Peru. We say preparar cuerpo. And
Hmm.
this translates also, Michael, to ayahuasca. So many people in the world now are just drinking ayahuasca, ceremony
Yeah.
here, ceremony there. They don't even know anything about plant diet, whatever. And here in Peru, the tradition wasn't really like that. It was more like they really analyzed the curanderos, the good ones. They see someone who is, their body physically or mentally, they're not prepared to drink
Yeah.
ayahuasca, and they would put them on diet first. And that's
Right.
something I still do. Like people come to me, and most of them are okay to drink ayahuasca. But I get a lot of patients that don't drink ayahuasca, they don't need it, and they're in such a healing place where they need so much healing and need to fortify their body and rejuvenate their body and get to a basic level of strength, and then they can go and drink ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. And to help people decide, yeah, I would say having a good teacher is really important, but also using your intuition.
Hmm.
That's important. And I'll also say this, like, for example, a person that's just beginning, there are many mistakes they can make with plant diets and with
Yeah.
ayahuasca. So I can go over a little bit of that. And basically, if they follow those rules, whatever plant they decide to diet, they can get a benefit from.
Hmm.
Uh, they can get more of a benefit. And the big thing is really watching over their diet.
Hmm.
The power of plants is not to be taken lightly. And many people, they go into a really sensitive state in the diet and they cut their diets and they take salt that day, and the next thing you know, they think they can eat whatever they want or eat
Hmm.
on the street. And it's a huge mistake that I've seen many people make, not our clients, not our students, but
Yeah.
because we really drill that in there. I've seen people almost die
Hmm.
because they go from such a sensitive place and they go literally to Pucallpa or wherever and eat a nice spicy ceviche,
Hmm.
raw fish dish with hot pepper, and
Yeah.
it can really cause damage. That what happens is when a person, this is called crossing their diet or
Right.
choking their diet. And what happens is when a person crosses up their diet or choke up their diet, all of the healing benefits of the plants that the plants were coming to help and heal and teach, they kind of like polarize and go the
Hmm.
opposite way and cause damage to the person. And this is what can happen. So my recommendation for people is to be very careful. The most important part is like closing the diet and the post diet. The post diet is so important. And it's something that's been significantly overlooked by many, let's say many here in Peru,
Hmm.
the different retreat centers and stuff. Many of them don't really even mention this.
Yeah.
So, and it's important to understand, like when a person go into dieting, right, Michael, it's like they're close and slowly over a period of days, they start to open, their bodies start to
Right.
open, maybe take a week or so, and then they get very open, very sensitive. And it's the
Yeah.
same when a person go to close the diet. It doesn't, you take salt today, it doesn't just go like that.
Right.
It slowly start to go back. So it's really important to give them time and give the plant space to settle. This is such an integral part of the diet and the post diet is give the plants time and space to just settle in.
Yeah.
And it's something that's really overlooked in the general world of medicine, ayahuasca. There's a lot of people that are mixing things, and I always speak out against that. I always speak out to like if you want to, in the beginning, a person is looking for their path, and there's many options here in Peru. It's the people come, it's like a kid in a candy store.
Hmm.
We have ayahuasca, we have coca leaf, we have San Pedro. We have all these and other plants that are psychedelic or psychoactive. So for a psychonaut, they're a kid in a candy store and they end up mixing and they drink ayahuasca here and take San Pedro there. And if a person is looking for one plant to specifically work with, it's good for them to a little bit, they can try, like test and see, but at some point the person needs to decide, Michael, and commit to one practice. They
Right.
don't want to mix practice too much. And nowadays I see a lot of that. I see a lot of people, they smoke the bufo, they smoke changa,
Hmm.
they're doing this, they're doing that. And these people, I've seen them for years, they end up going nowhere and
Yeah.
they end up getting into a lot of trouble physically. I've seen people with broken bones
Hmm.
broken in the back because of all the tension that this, we say here, crucedera, a big crossed up situation, that this causes.
I see.
So this is something very important that I recommend to new people just that are interested in starting out on this work to take it soft, take it easy, don't push too hard, and commit to one thing.
Right.
Commit to one thing and stick with that for a while and see where it goes. And
Hmm.
it's something, I'll tell you from my personal experience. Before I drank ayahuasca ever, I worked with magic mushroom, and I
Hmm.
worked with magic mushroom for 2 years. I grew them, I dieted them, and this was like in the 90s,
Hmm.
and this was before now. The big thing is microdosing, and
Yeah.
they're coming out with all these studies about mushroom and psilocybin healing brain conditions, non-responsive depression, ADD, all of this stuff. And
Yeah.
I was in that 20 something years ago, and I
Yeah.
figured it all out. And it was amazing. And I was microdosing and all this before I even knew what microdosing was, right?
Right.
Before that, that word was invented. And what happened was after about 2 years, I got to the point where I was in a great communication with the mushroom, and they told me, well, son, this is it. Well, this is all we're able to teach you for now. And that was it. And I finished, and it was like 20 something years ago. Yeah. And after that, that's when I started working with ayahuasca. So it's something like, if you want to work, these are all powerful teacher plants. And if you want to work with them, it's fine. There's no like, this is better or that is better. No, it's what's best for you personally, right? So you need to make that decision, and you need to commit to that for a period of time. And during that time, you don't want to go mixing with other powerful plant medicines.
Sure.
Because it's really opening up a big can of worms.
Right. So there's, with the pandemic, a lot of people are home right now. And I've noticed that more people are trying to do home dietas. Some people who have some experience having done dietas in the jungle, and maybe other people, they're just trying it for the first time. So what would be your advice, or what are the most important things, like the principal tenets that people should keep in mind when they do their own dieta, and probably for the most part, opening or trying to open the dieta just with their intention and then closing it just with their intention? What are like the most important factors in your opinion?
Okay, well, what I would suggest is you have different types of diets, right? So you have soft diets where you can take a little bit of salt. You take no oil, no red meat, no hot pepper, no onion, no garlic, but you can have a little bit of salt, and a little bit of fruit. That's like a soft diet, right? Or what we call here a post diet after the hard diet.
Yeah.
A hard diet is no salt, no spice, no fruit, no sweet, nothing. And it's just really, really simple, bland food, not a lot of taste and all that, right? So depending on how heavy the person wants to go in their situation, if they're at home, they can actually do a hard diet. But the big thing I would suggest is really disconnecting from the media, and disconnecting from all of this information that's out there right now, because it's a hysteria, and it's a lot of fear, and it's a lot of oppression, suppression. People are locked down, they're isolated, and it's really sad. People are, it's sad for me to see the world in this state.
Right.
And I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for those that are suffering right now, especially in these new lockdowns. And it's something that I recommended to our students last year, was when the world was going into lockdown, to take the time and take advantage of the time and do some personal work. So we did make that recommendation. I had a lot of students that went into their own diet, at home.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big recommendations I make for these people is consider if you want to do a hard or soft diet. If you have to be around people, it's best to just do a soft diet. If you can be totally isolated, like you live by yourself or you have a housemate or whoever, but you can be in your own place alone most of the time, totally disconnected, you could do hard diet.
Yeah.
And you disconnect from all of the information out there, the media, and really take the time for yourself. Right. That's of utmost importance. Yeah. And then for the intention to open the diet, yeah, absolutely. The intention is what drives a lot of this. And it's one of the most important factors. And it's something that, a lot of the local coordinators, because of the language gap or whatever, they don't emphasize that so much. But you put your intention into the diet, and you make it. Be good to make a petition. Write down what you want to get out of the diet. You write that down and you put that out there. Yeah. And that's opening the diet. To close the diet, you take the salt and mix in some water and wash your mouth when you cut your diet, and with that intention as well, that okay, now I'm cutting my diet, and you thank the plants that you consumed or you bathed with. You want to thank them, and especially in the beginning as well, you always want to talk with them and develop a line of communication, right? Yeah. So this is some of the advice that I would give for people in this position, and also to understand that they're making an investment in themselves, their lives, their health, that is independent, right? That's independent from modern medicine, from the modern medical establishment
Yeah.
and the medical professionals. And this is a very important point, and it's something I'll share with you, Michael, that really, for me, was critical. At a young age, I had decided I lost faith. I didn't have a lot of trust in, maybe instinctively, I didn't have a lot of trust in, let's say, the establishment. What I mean by that is the modern governments, the modern medical system. I was actually always quite a contrarian. I remember that word, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
At a young age, I was kind of tapped into this line of thought. I read books like Orwell's 1984, Aldous Huxley, who had experimented with mescaline and peyote. So I read these type of books, and at a young age, as a teenager, I was kind of disenfranchised with the modern medical establishment, the modern medical industrial complex, and I didn't really trust, instinctively didn't trust doctors or the medical profession, right? And who helped me a lot was my father. I first started drinking plants when I was 13, and my father was, he used to take me to this guy. We were talking about him not too long ago. His name was Dr. Zolchek. And Dr. Zolchek came from one of those Slavic countries, Eastern Europe, and he opened a little shop called Tetra Herb Company. And he's the one that taught my father. And they got me started on herbs. And I noticed immediately that they put me fasting, and they gave me these like terrible tasting plants, super bitter, but I didn't get sick anymore. Like I stopped getting colds and flus. And that stuck with me. And past many years, I hit my early 20s. I was 21 when I formally started studying all this and going really hardcore, and I never forgot that. And the essence of it is be your own doctor. Who knows you better than yourself? And who knows what your weakest links are and how to build them up? If you start studying this, if you start studying yourself and studying all the information out there, this is what I did. I read a lot of books. I looked for different teachers, not one teacher, I didn't have a maestro. No, I had many, and here and there, and just giving me tidbits of knowledge. But I was the one that really just, put it all together, and it came together for me, naturally. It came together for me, and it just built my passion so much even more to have these reactions and to have these like cleansing, healing crises. And see my body change and see my health improve. And this is something that just really changed my life. So I tell that to all the people out there that maybe they're a little down, they're stuck at home. What this work does is it presents an alternative to what we have there in the world right now. And for me personally, like, do you trust these people? Do you trust the modern medical establishment, the World Health Organization, all these people? I never did. And I always saw at a young age that I need to take responsibility for myself and my own health. And that's one of the things that drove me to plant medicine. And it's something that is actually, for your listeners, Michael, it's something that can be very empowering, because when you're independent, it's like financially, if you have to work for someone, you have a boss or a manager, you're an employee. But if you are financially independent, right? You're your own boss, you have your own company, or you have your own nest egg, and it's a different story. So this is what I always sought. I always sought in my life to be completely independent. And I created little by little, I created my life around that principle.
One of the things that I've noticed for myself is, certainly the dietas have led to a lot of healing. A lot of the healing I can't actually identify. I just know that I felt better afterwards, but I can't really identify like what exactly was healing. In fact, most of the time I wasn't really sure what was healing, unless it was like in an ayahuasca ceremony, when you have like visions of what you might be purging. But I think what's confusing or difficult for some people is when they start doing dietas, they start to find that they have very strong healing crises or processes, but it doesn't necessarily stop when the dieta is closed. So it's kind of opening this box And now the body seems to be in a healing cycle and starts to bring things up. So,
Yeah, this happens. It's very common.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I've also noticed that when I come home and when I take plants, you know, I try to study plants by basically taking it within myself. But
Mhm.
when I'm home, I'm not dieting. I don't really like dieting so much at home these days.
Mhm.
And one of the things I've noticed is it's like, you know, getting the healing of the plants, but at like 20% fuerza.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Going full.
it's starting the healing, but you're like, oh, you know, if I was in Dieta, I bet this would be really strong and I would get like catharsis or it would
Yeah.
really move through. But this one is just kind of lingering for days or weeks. And
Yeah.
sometimes even when I don't take plants, there might be healing processes that come up because, you know, I use hape. Sometimes I'll take a little bit of ayahuasca at home by myself. So have you experienced that as well, where, you know, it doesn't end with a dieta, but it just kind of has a life of its own? And how have you dealt with that?
Absolutely. It's somewhat common. It's somewhat common where the person cuts their diet, but they're still in a diet situation,
Hmm.
or they're still integrating the transformations that took
Hmm.
place inside of themselves. And this can take time. As I mentioned before, you really need to give it the work time to settle.
Hmm.
And it's possible, you know, you mentioned healing crisis or healing reaction. And there's also Herring's law of cure.
Hmm.
If you know about that, where when a person is going into disease and illness, they're like going down a hole or down a
Yeah.
ladder. And
Right.
Herring's law of cure says when you're healing through natural medicine, you start to climb back up out of
Hmm.
the hole, right?
Yeah.
So this can take time, and it's important to recognize when this happens and give your body the space and time and have patience and do things depending on what the person has. You know, like it's
Hmm.
very common here with the palos we drink, the trees, they're very hot and they're
Yeah.
very heated. So what we do is we give cooling things like malva and cucumber and
Hmm.
things like that to help bring the heat down, you know.
Hmm.
And also for us in this situation, we've had people go into full-on healing crisis after a diet or when
Yeah.
they're finishing a diet. And it's funny because they say, oh, you know, they're drinking these trees and they say, oh, I don't feel anything, I feel good.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden it hits them like a train wreck,
Yeah.
and they could have fever, they could have headache, body aches, cold, constipation, diarrhea, all this stuff, and they could get it from here to there, you know. So it's our job to really help these people, you know, get them out of there and ease the pain, ease the
Hmm.
burden. And basically, what it is like they go through a massive detox,
Yeah.
and the liver, the kidney can't really function. It reached capacity and
Hmm.
it's full, so the blood get dirty. So we do our best. We have hot water and we have cold water spring too. So we bring them like hot water bath. We do a hot water bath and then cold water, hot cold to stimulate the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
We give them special plants like cooling plants and soft plants, not big heavy t-shirt plants, but soft plants to really
Yeah.
ease the pain and things like that.
I see.
So so yeah, it's something that's very common. Also, not just a healing problem, but I've seen people come out of a diet, and because their consciousness has shifted so much, they go out into the world and they have interaction with somebody, and it caused them to have something mental, you know,
Hmm.
and caused them to have some type of suffering. So a lot of these are tough lessons. And I'll say this from all of my experience, these parts actually, this is where you learn a lot.
Yeah.
This is where you learn a lot. So it's good to understand that when these things happen, it's for a reason.
Hmm.
And it's always important. I say this, and I tell you, in this type of practice, we're talking about, you know, for most people, plant diets, plant medicine, plant spirits. This be considered mystical knowledge or ancient
Hmm.
knowledge, occult knowledge of the science of nature. And it's very important to, you know, I'm a mystic, but I'm also a scientist.
Hmm.
So I like to demystify things and really get to the roots of what is this and what is that, right? You know, I like to figure it out and have it explained to me. So what I suggest to people just starting out and to go back to that previous question, is something of utmost importance is it's always good to see some type of results. So if you're drinking plants and like you mentioned as well, like you feel like it's done some healing, you're not quite sure where, it's good to really start tracking your results and tracking where have you been, where were you, and then where are you now? And I say this because you never want to be studying something that's a dead end for you. You don't want to be putting work and effort into something that you're not getting a benefit from. And that's why, you know, for me, my work is somewhat results oriented. No, for me, when I see somebody that's sick, they come to me, they're sick, they have lupus, or they have this, or they have that, they have fibro. I see them, they're fine, and then all of a sudden they get hammered, they get hit hard, and they start going through a cleansing reaction, a healing reaction. It shows me, it's confirmation, right? It's confirmation that we're getting a reaction, something is happening. So this is always very important for me. It's important for a healer to see someone getting a reaction, although it may not always be pleasant. It's not usually pleasant at first. It's really important to see that and to understand it. So it's another recommendation I give for all the listeners is whatever you practice, it's kind of like if you want to go study carpentry, right? And you know nothing. Well, you know, after 2 years in the technical school, and after another 2 years working as a, you know, as an apprentice carpenter, you should be able to, let's say, build some scaffolding and start to put a little house together, right? You should have some type of advancement in your knowledge.
Right.
So the way we gauge that is, you know, what I recommend for people as well is to keep a journal. For my dieters, you know, they write what you think, what your feelings are now. And I tell them, wait 1 year and go back and revisit that. So that you go back and revisit that and you see where you were and you see this ideas that you had and it's a kind of a clip. It's a clip of your mental state and your emotion and where you were at that time, right?
Right.
And then you come back a year later and you see the change.
Yeah.
You see, and I've had people just come and tell me, wow, you know, I feel like they send me a message a year or two later, wow, you know, you were right about this and that. And wow, I'm like, I'm doing really well now in my life and I feel totally different. I'm in a totally different place.
Right.
So it's good to see that, you know, I always want to see progress. I don't want to waste my time, and I have a limited amount of time, and we don't like at Ampiri, we don't really accept just anyone. We have a filtering system and we only accept people that we have more or less a good idea that we can work with and we can help, right?
Right.
So this is, we do a lot of filtering, and these people that come, I spend time with them and I check them and I see, and I use like kind of a law of probability, you know, there's like, you know, a percentage of the people that I really know I can help so much, and I tend to invest a little more time with them. And I check the people that, you know, I see their limitation or to how far they could go right now, and I give them that, right? So it's important to know like the limitation and the extent on which you can work, and understand like all of this stuff takes patience. When you enter this world, it's another point I make for your listeners is the study of plants. When you enter the study, it's a lifelong commitment. It really is. When you if you feel it, it's not something you do from the evening to the morning where you become a curandero or whatever, or you get to a high level. And it's something that really, for me, I'd like to express that, because you have a lot of people that come here, foreigners that come to Peru and want to study this work, and also Peruvians. It's not just foreigners, Peruvians, that it's a quick world, right? Everything is instant, fast food, fast medicine, information age. People want stuff fast. They don't want to wait. And this work is not like that at all. This work takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of it takes a lot of sacrifice, you know. And these are very important to understand, because many people have these illusions. I call them, you know, romantic illusion, that they can come to the jungle and they can learn all this stuff and then they can be a curandero. And what I tell my students, I had a student like this, and I'll just share with you. My student, he was with Taita in Colombia, and the Taita was putting all these ideas into his head. And he said, you know, you could be a shaman and this and that. And he came to me, and this gentleman, he had done one diet. It was about like a month and a half, and he had come back, and he ended up spending like 3.5 months with us dieting.
Mhm.
And this question popped up when he was dieting the second time, and he said, this Taita, he told me, yeah, you could be a shaman, this and that. And I said, you know what, man, quite frankly, don't even think about that right now. Don't
Yeah.
even think about it. You're just a beginner. You're like in kindergarten. You're just
Mhm.
starting out. What you need to focus on is developing your practice, developing your diet, and developing yourself,
Mhm.
healing yourself. The guy had health conditions, and he did a lot of work. And he came back to me afterwards, and he really thanked me. He said, I really appreciate this advice you gave me, because it makes so much sense. Like, why should I be thinking about this? It's like when you're just in kindergarten thinking about being a medical doctor or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like so far away.
Right.
And what happens though is many people, they go ahead and do it anyway. They come to Peru and they do a diet or two, and then they go back home, and they all of a sudden are serving ayahuasca, or they're
Mhm.
doing their own circles. And it's something that I'm a contrarian. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong process, and it takes many years. And there are actual, like in terms of ayahuasca, there are certain levels a person should get to before
Mhm.
they should serve medicine, serve ayahuasca. And one of those is, to be able to bring down the person's mardiación.
Yeah.
So the mardiación is the visions that you get, the journey
Right.
that you get from ayahuasca. And the fundamental thing that the curanderos here will tell you, if you ask them, is like, what's the fundamental basic thing? If you want to be an ayahuasquero, what's the basic thing you should do? There are two things. You should be able to open the person's mardiación,
Mhm.
open their vision, and also help them bring it down.
Yeah.
So you're always going to have somebody that's like, whew, they get hit hard.
Yeah.
And it can be a dangerous situation. If somebody has no idea what they're doing, it could be a dangerous situation. And that's
Right.
like a basic level, right? But what's
Right.
happening is people come, and also Peruvians, I've seen it here. I've seen guys that, quite frankly, I remember them from the village.
Mhm.
They were in the village, when I knew them, chasing girls and drinking
Mhm.
beer. And I've seen these people actually on a webpage now or whatever, for some retreat center. And they
Yeah.
have a kusma, and they're all of a sudden a curandero, right?
Right. Right.
So there's all of that stuff to consider. And at the end of the day, this work, it takes a lot of commitment, and it
Yeah.
takes time, it takes patience. And people like myself, people like Reina, it was never our intention to become curanderos or paleros. It was just something that naturally happened after many years.
Yeah.
And I tell you personally, for myself, I had a lot of reservations going in, or offering my work to the public, because
Mhm.
I was happy just doing my own diets and my own practice. And I didn't need so much a source of income. It wasn't my desire to open a center or anything like that.
Mhm.
I had the passion for it.
Right.
But what we've seen is we've seen a lot of people that have come into the work, and from the night to the morning, they want to try to, harvest something financially, or
Yeah.
also the mystique of being a healer or a curandero. Maybe it's some ego thing.
Yeah.
And I suggest that people do not do that. I've seen people make the mistakes. I've seen people come here with good intentions
Yeah.
to want to learn and do diets, and then they end up getting involved in a retreat center, and then
Mhm.
it all goes down the drain, right?
Right.
And talking about this, just another point I'll make on it is, what's happening here with ayahuasca is there's a lot of cultural appropriation taking place.
Mhm.
So what this means is, I'll give you an example. I have a spot in the jungle where I always used to go to get my vine, and it wasn't a lot. It was something I was just to cook for myself and our dieters.
Mhm.
And I sent my guy there, and on the way he sees a guy in a motor car, and they asked him, "Hey man, how you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just going in to get some vine." He said, "There isn't any." And
Mhm.
this was a jungle that was full of ayahuasca vines,
Mhm.
full, like whew, tons, literally tons, thousands of kilos of ayahuasca grown ever. It
Yeah.
was all emptied. It
Wow.
was all emptied last year. It was all emptied. And the guy told him, "Hey, there isn't any." He didn't believe me. He went and looked. It was empty. They said they brought trucks. They brought big truck
Mhm.
to harvest it all. And they took it all out with the roots and everything, right?
Wow.
So they took even the roots, and it's something, Michael, it's really sad for me because I like to, do things sustainably if I can.
Yeah.
And so when we harvest the vines, we don't cut the roots. We cut
Hmm.
above the root. And 3 years, if you wait 3 years, you have a new vine
Yeah.
because you have the rootstock. The rootstock there regenerates.
Hmm.
But these people, they come, they take all the roots, and it's something that's happening now. There's a huge demand for the capi vine, and
Hmm.
you have a lot of people commercializing it. A lot of people here in Peru. You have herb dealers that are buying like truckloads of it. You have
Hmm.
people cooking it, and it's all export, right? It's
Right.
mostly all export. So it's just another point I wanted to bring up is like there's a lot of cultural appropriation taking place
Yeah.
with the vine and with the knowledge and the plant medicine in general. And it's another point I like to make is this is a reason it's really interesting. Many, I would say not many, most of the curanderos here in Peru don't really teach their students.
Hmm.
They don't teach them. And why? If you talk to them, they tell you because of cultural appropriation.
Hmm.
Because they say, oh, the foreigners will come. If I really teach them, then they go back home, they take their ayahuasca, then they're curanderos, and they will not help me anymore. They're done with me.
Hmm.
It's like they sucked all the knowledge out of the teacher, and then they go do
Hmm.
it themselves, kind of
Hmm.
thing. And this is
Right.
something that many curanderos express here because this is something, frankly, that has happened, right? It's
Hmm.
happened. So it's something I've seen, and so what's going on is many people, unfortunately, they come to Peru. They don't really get a lot of teachings.
Hmm.
They may get a little dieta, or they may get something like mostly ceremonies,
Hmm.
and they have a name for this here. If you talk to the locals, we have a name for it, and they call it buying a movie ticket. This is
Hmm.
what they call it. They have a name for it, for this type of work where they're not interested in really teaching someone. They give them a big cup of ayahuasca, and that's it. Send them on their way. Yeah. So just some local stuff I thought I'd share with you about the
Yeah.
situation here, and it's something that rings to me, is the whole cultural appropriation aspect of all this, where I
Right.
think people that come uh, really need to have uh, respect for this work and
Hmm.
understand how powerful it is, and
Yes.
understand that there will be consequences. There will be
Right.
consequences. So if somebody doesn't approach this work with a lot of respect and gratitude and humility, at some point they're going to get knocked pretty hard.
Right.
And I can make another little point, and then we can move to the next question. But I just tell you, for example, here we have a saying. We say la ayahuasca es bien mentirosa,
Hmm.
and that means the ayahuasca is a big fat liar, right? She's a big fat liar. And I equate it to my students. I explain to them that when you start studying this, the ayahuasca, the plant medicine, the ancestral medicine here of the Amazon, you're kind of like pushing your canoe into a river of lies.
Hmm.
You push your canoe in there, and how do you get across? You do your work. There's no
Hmm.
shortcuts. There's no free lunch. It's hard work, discipline, diets, training, right?
Yeah.
And you slowly get your boats. You go through all of the BS. You go through all the lie, deception, and finally, if you work really hard and you do it right, and you have good teaching or good direction, right? Good
Yeah.
direction. You get to the other side and you can see through all the nonsense. But what
Hmm.
happens, my friend, is unfortunately, most people, they get to the middle of the river
Hmm.
and the canoe sinks.
Hmm.
The canoe sinks and they have to swim somewhere. They have to swim to shore.
Yeah.
And there's a part of all this work where there are tests. There are
Hmm.
tests. And the person at some point, like going back to the diets, they finish the diet and they get hit, boom, or they go through another process that's even more intense than the diet.
Yeah.
These are tests, and
Hmm.
it's something that goes side by side with this work. There are always
Yeah.
tests. There are always shots that a person's going to take, and this is how we learn.
Thank you. Yeah, those are all really, really good points. And I agree with you completely on pretty much everything you've said, because I've also seen it here in Europe where I live, and also among people I run into who have been dieting for a while, and then the next thing they're running ceremonies, and they may not necessarily be qualified or have the experience. So yeah, I think it's really important that you shared that. I wanted to ask you about the tests. So I think people who have done dietas are certainly they've experienced, or they were at least told by their teachers, that you may encounter pruebas, tests during dieta.
Pruebas.
Yeah, and those tests, in my experience, really come in like so many different forms. It can even come in the form of other people that you interact with, and like it starts making your dieta difficult, which I understand now is why it's best to keep to yourself during dieta. But when you look back upon your path, what are some of the more challenging tests that you came across, and how did you surpass those tests, whether it was during dieta or even outside of dieta?
Wow, good question. Um, so, first of all, let me explain to you a lesson I got from my first. I had a really good teacher, my sifu. His name is Zhong Lo. He's from Foshan, China,
Mhm.
South China. And he started teaching me when I was 21. And he gave me a lot of like really deep insight into Kung Fu world
Mhm.
and into training and these type of things. And he said to me one day, he said, you know, Gabe, what do you do this for? What do you do? You're training every night, 2, 3 hours, hit the sandbag. You know, we used to do a lot of conditioning, hit the sandbag, hit the heavy bag. We
Yeah.
do bare knuckle sparring, you get blood, sweat. He said, why? Why, Gabe? For 15 seconds in the bar,
Mhm.
for 15 seconds in the streets. When the guy want to kill you, you have something. You
Mhm.
have something to defend yourself, to knock the crap out of the guy and get the hell out of there, get home.
Mhm.
And it was a deep lesson for me, and it's something that stuck, and actually it proved to be true.
Mhm.
Exactly what he said, and it got me out of physical confrontations a number of times, having this ability to really knock somebody down
Yeah.
in a tough situation where they want to rob you or kill you or hurt you. You
Mhm.
have this weapon that you can use and unleash on them,
Yeah.
right? So, and it's an analogy for this work too. There have been times, Michael, I've spent years dieting where I've had small tests,
Mhm.
but then the big one comes. The
Yeah.
big one comes, and it's like life or death. And
Mhm.
more or less, to answer your question, you know, for me, I went through the ringer here with a number of different enemies,
Mhm.
and we're talking about, you know, maybe some of your viewers, listeners, maybe they don't know about. They may hear about black magic or sorcery or
Mhm.
brujeria, but they might think, well, I don't think that exists, or it doesn't affect me. Well, I'm here to tell you, you know, when it hits you and when you have a powerful enemy that really wants to kill you, they
Yeah.
want to kill you and they have weapons, you feel it, you
Mhm.
know? So some of my tests included, I had snakes coming after me, like
Mhm.
literally, physically. I had the fer-de-lance, the hergon.
Mhm.
We're talking like pit vipers, man. I
Yeah.
had pit vipers come after me. I had pit vipers in my room. At one
Mhm.
point, I had snakes all over the place. Even in my dreams, they came, you know.
Mhm.
And they have a secret here where they burn the snake. Actually, they burn the snake alive with gasoline.
Mhm.
They burn the snake, and this helped get rid of the snake and the person that's sending it to you.
Mhm.
So I had things like that. One has to understand when we go into the world, if we want to enter this conversation about the dark side of all this, brujeria, black magic, or the witch doctors and the work they did, it's important to understand their origin, right?
Mhm.
So back in the days of tribalism, you know, the pre-colonial times of the Amazon, before there were conquistadores and before there was the Spanish, there were just tribal life and tribal warfare.
Yeah.
And the tribes would raid each other. They would kill all the men, take all the women and children, and acculturate them to the new tribe. This is
Mhm.
how it was, right? So what they instituted was they had their warriors, and they always had their shamans or the witch doctors that saw everything, and they were experts in the field of spiritual warfare. You know, they were, in these days, the healers, the shaman, the curanderos, they were not just healers, they were brujos too. They needed weapons to defend the village and to fight. So of course the jungle has both. The trees themselves have a positive energy and a negative energy, and it depends on the person what they want to tap into, and that is what they get. So for us in the healing field, we always, we go to the tree and we ask the tree for the healing energy and for healing and for a positive thing. But the bruju go and want to get the weapons, right? So these guys, they ended up, they did both. And what happened was, this is the origin. It was out of like survival, right? This is where this knowledge come from here in the Amazon. And what they instituted was a lot of poison. So there's a lot of poison in the Amazon. There are poison insects. You have poison frogs, you have poison plants, there's tons of poison. I mean, we're talking about poison, and medicine is the autoimmune or the immune system of the jungle. The leaves, they have certain alkaloids that are poisonous, so certain insects don't eat them. The roots, the plants all produce these alkaloids. What we use for medicine is from their immune system, right? Same with the little poison dart frog that weighs 5 grams but can kill an elephant. It's a cute little frog, but it's got enough neurotoxin in there to, stop the heart of an elephant. So what these guys did, the origins, they started studying these worms and insects, and this is what they learned to maneuver. This is what they learned to maneuver and shoot, like they say the birote is a poison dart, to shoot the birotes at their enemies and attack them, or for defense, right? And so that's the origin. It's important to understand that it's not all black and white, there's a reason for this. And what happened was, now we go through, fast forward to the modern times, and we have, no need for that now. There really isn't a need for all this dark magic, because, they're not in tribal warfare mode. They're just living, but they still have the knowledge, right? So what do? It's more or less, here in Pucallpa, it's like guns for hire. If you talk to the locals, they'll tell you, well, there's not such good curanderos in Pucallpa, but there's a lot of brujos. And if you need to kill somebody, go to Pucallpa, give them a few thousand soles, you can knock somebody out. And so that's the situation. It kind of devolved into, now they're just guns for hire. You see what I'm saying? Brujos and stuff. So for me, it's important, just a little background to understand, like where that knowledge come from. And what happened was, for me, I had people in my life that were very envious and jealous of me, and they sent me a lot of stuff, and it's stuff that I'll tell you, up until I will say this, I had one of the worst tests. I did have a birote stuck inside of me for a number of years, and there was like nothing I could do to get it out. And I was doing a lot of dieting, and I had this pain in my back, and all this and that. And I had, just by chance, known that this particular person, this enemy of mine that I had, who had passed away many years ago, but I still had this damage, right? I happened to know what tree that they had primarily worked with. And the funny thing was, I never had dieted this tree. And last year I went and I dieted this tree for almost 2 months. And I'd say it was around 25 days, Michael, I had a dream. And in my dream, I was laying there, and this big white thing was come out and was sitting beside me. And it looked like a big white mass, about this big, kind of like pizza dough or something, raw wheat dough. And in my dream, I go and I touch it, and it was like this big thing, this big spike. And it was like the size of my finger, and it was hard. That was the dream, right? And the next morning I wake up and I just start purging so much stuff.
Wow.
And it took 2 days. I was just purging and nasty stuff I don't even want to tell you about. All the pain went away, my friend. All the pain was gone. After it was almost 10 years. 10 years I lived with this.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is I would say that was one of my hardest tests to live with this. With this damage, and but at the end of the day, it was a lesson for me.
Sure.
It was part of my fault that I was able to open. I opened the door at some point, and I let that get in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have a saying here: never stop paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to no es para descuidar. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they say here. It's not to, you never want to stop paying attention, because that's the moment when the enemies can strike you.
Mm.
So there's a lot of this here in Peru, and I don't want to get your listeners worried or
Sure.
anything. What it comes down to is, when you live here and you're part of the community, you will have, it's part of the Peruvian culture where they'll, be smiley with you in your face, but kind of look behind your back and have some resentment or envy or whatever. But yeah, so that's how it is. Some other tests that I've had have been, not from people or brujos, but from the trees themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, I've had tests like, most common is a bad dream or sexual dream.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the spirits themselves of the jungle you're in will come to you and try to test you, try to scare you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always important for me, when I go into a new jungle, to be in the jungle and say hi to the jungle, and say hi, tell them my name. Tell them I come in peace. I'm not here to create any problems, because every jungle has, just as much life there is that you can see, animals, insects, plants. The flip side of that, the spiritual world there is also just as full, right? So it's important to make a greeting to them and say hi. And this is what here in Peru, the old timers did, like the great grandfathers from, 100 years ago, before there was much industry and before the modern world hit really the jungle. When they were going to a new place, they would stop before they drink the water. They say hi to the water. Whatever, if there were spirits in the water, they would know them, and they would give them space, right? And accept them and let them go, pass. So a number of times I've had these type of tests, especially in the beginning years, where I go into the jungle and I see all the spirit there, and they're kind of like angry and upset, or they really don't know. And I tell them, I say, hey, I'm just here, I'm doing my diet, please just let me be, and we can be friends. And then I've seen them like get really friendly and happy with me, and make friends.
Right.
It's kind of like a person, you go to a new place, you go to, let's say, a new restaurant, and you don't know anybody there, and you go sit at the bar and you order, whatever. And little by little, the people come and they start to talk to you. And then the next thing you know, you make friends with them, and the whole bar, or the whole restaurant. And it's the same story with the jungles, right? So I've had these type of tests, and this is something else that's common for beginners, and maybe your listeners, this is another lesson for them, is in the beginning, the sexual aspect of dieting. When you diet, you go into a state of celibacy. You go into a state of conservation of your sexual force. So the idea is, in a diet, to sublimate the sexual energy and use it for healing and expanding your consciousness, right? So it's one of the, especially with younger people, it's one of the more common tests or pruebas that they can get, is these sexual dreams. And as a man, you may have like these beautiful women's coming to you. They want to just fall in love with you and all this and that. And as a woman, maybe you have these beautiful men, beautiful people coming to just fall in love with you, in the dream. So what I tell the dieters is, always remember your diet. In your dream, just tell them, hey, no, I'm in my diet. And you don't want to get into the situation where you have, let's say you have sex in your dream. It's not so good. It's not good. You can choke your diet up. So these are more common tests in the beginning, and it's stuff to be aware of. And also another thing to be aware of is test-wise is people, and maintaining that space and that distance. And when you do your diet by yourself. And I don't recommend people do a lot of talking and blah, blah, blah when they're in their diet, and not mixing energy. It's not good. And also after the diet, what I recommend to people that finish here is, I tell them, hey, when you go out, the first time, let's say a month, these people go out and use internet, and they have all these messages, and they have relatives. And I tell them, hey, you don't want to get wrapped up in long conversations with your relatives. Just keep it short, keep it quick. Tell them, hey, I'm good. I'm here in the jungle finishing my work, and going to be traveling such and such date, but everything is good. Thank you. And that's it. Keep things to a minimum, and this is something very important, because I've noticed that some of these tests for people have come out of too much interaction after the
Yeah.
diet.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is more, I think, a question that people who have been dieting for a while may have. And, as you mentioned, a lot of people who diet, they diet because, at least there's a thought in their mind that, hey, I want to be a curandero or a curandera, and I'm dieting to eventually learn the medicine. But yet, I would say, at least from my observation, of course, not everybody who wants to be a curandero or curandera becomes one. They may serve medicine, but they're not serving medicine as like a medico,
No.
in the Amazonian sense. So, what are like, do you believe that everyone is meant to be a curandero, or is that like a grace or something that's just destined to be for some people if they decide to put in the work? And have you encountered like people who are dieting, but they're just not learning the medicine? Maybe, and why do you think that is?
Okay. Yeah, I would say it's somewhat of a fallacy to think that everybody that enters this work is going to become a curandero.
Mhm.
It's not the case at all. It's quite the opposite, at least with the people that come to us.
Yeah.
The people that come to us are very genuine, and they're not full of a lot of like a romantic illusion about they want to do this or do that. Most of our dieters are, professional people and hardworking people that have a life, but they
Yeah.
have problems, and they're looking to correct those problems and live a better life and live life to their fullest. Like fix their lives or fix things that they know they need to be fixed, right?
Yeah.
And most of these people come and they do the work, and sometimes they need more work and they come back and they may come diet, but they have no interest whatsoever to become a curandero,
Mm-hmm.
right? They really have quite little interest. What happened? There's a saying here, like for myself, for Reina, both of us, we entered because of uh, health, health reasons. We entered because of personal curiosity, things like that. And for many years, I mentioned before, I was never interested in being a teacher or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. But what happened was people started coming to me and just asking me to, share some of the knowledge that I had, and especially when I had purchased the land at the Boiling River.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a very amazing place, and the nature there
Yeah.
and the jungle, it's incredible. And people told me, hey, you need to share this. I had
Mm-hmm.
one little hut there, and that was me in the hut dieting, me dieting
Right.
and doing my work and doing my practice. So, and for me, I would say it was something that I never thought in my wildest dreams, that
Mm-hmm.
I would enter this work like this. It was never on the agenda. It was never even in my mind
Sure.
to be a curandero, to be a teacher, to be a healer.
Mm-hmm.
I was more concerned about myself and fixing myself,
Yeah.
And the same goes for Reina. And I would say, actually, the people that have the most potential are these type of people.
Mm-hmm.
The people that really right now in the beginning, they're not so interested in becoming a curandero. I'll tell you, I had a student here, and she did some very strong diets, and she did like long fasting in the diets and just went really, really full throttle.
Yeah.
And one day Reina was there, and this was a number of years ago. Reina was there, and she said, yeah, like you keep doing this, you'll be a curandera.
Mm-hmm.
And the young lady said to Reina, she said, oh, no, I do not want to be a curandera.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the essence of all of this? Why she said that? Because she was there helping for many months, and she saw the pain and suffering that we endure
Mm-hmm.
with doing this work.
Yeah.
And that's something that people really need to consider. And I'll tell any of you that think that, hey, I want to do my diets and eventually become a curandero or a curandera. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. So first of all, you need to be prepared to get hammered.
Mm-hmm.
Life or death situation. If you're going to live here in Peru is a shark tank.
Mm-hmm.
Really is. Peru is a shark tank. I've seen many people, foreigners, come here and die,
Mm-hmm.
because of enemies, because of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to really consider if you're willing to deal with all of the bad stuff too, because being a healer is not all it's cracked up to be, my friend. You know, it really isn't. Maybe people, because there's such a need for this now, there's such a need for the old ways, going back to simplicity, going back to nature. And it's something like, for example, Michael, when I was starting in this, I remember trying to tell people, like, people would come and ask me about these purgative plants that I'm taking. And I'm telling them, yeah, you know, like you take this and you go to the toilet like 20 times a day and you'll clean everything out. But you might get a healing reaction. You might get a healing crisis. You might get a fever. And they say to me, oh my God, what? I get sick? No, let's go get a pizza. I'm not going there. No, I just, you know, let's go get a pizza. And this, we're talking the 90s, right? We're talking like 1997, 98. Back then, nobody was interested in this stuff. And I didn't care less. I said to myself back then, Michael, I said, you know what? I'm going to not even try. I'm doing this. This is my passion. This is my outlet. This is what I love. I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for anybody else, or I don't have any desire to do anything but just out of curiosity for myself and heal myself and do my own work, right? So I left it alone in many years. And recently I went abroad, and I was received by so many people just hugging me and thanking me and just doing a little lecture, you know, and just opening things up, opening this knowledge up to these people that were so hungry for it. And it was kind of like I was in an instant kind of mini celebrity mode, right? So it was real, like, drastic change from what the situation was 20, 25 years ago, right? In the world. Now this information, this knowledge, this wisdom is, I mean, this is what they need. This is what they're looking for, you know, something that's truly holistic that they can use to fix everything, you know, fix their mind, their body, their emotion. This is what people are looking for. So what happened is there is an excitement amongst, let's say, new people that are just entering the field now to, wow, yeah, you know, one day I want to be a curandero, or one day I want to do healing. And it goes back to, I see most of these people, not most, but a good percentage of them, you know, there's something there. There's like maybe an ego thing, where the idea of being a curandero, they have a romantic illusion about being a curandero. So what I'm here to do is I'm here to tell you the honest, the goodness truth, that it can be a real pain in the ass, my friend. I mean, it's no joke. It's hard work. And people, when they imagine you get somebody, you have to be prepared to go into a life and death situation. This is what it comes down to. And I'll tell you, I've been in them a bunch of times where not just myself, you know, trying to survive myself, but trying to keep somebody else from going off the deep end, my friend, right? Either physically or mentally. When somebody breaks, and they will always break, when you're a healer, you're always going to get, sooner or later, you're going to get a tough case. It's like my Sifu said, why do we train? For 15 seconds in the street, right? You don't know when those guys are going to come try to knock you down, but you better have the tools to defend yourself when they do. And it's the same in this work. You could do this work, you could do your diets, you could be really good for many years. And all of a sudden, as we talked about before, la prueba bien, the test comes and you will get tested. So these people that maybe see all of the happy side of this work, or the bright lights and all that, have to understand that this work is, first of all, it's a lifelong commitment. As I mentioned before, it takes years of practice, years of study. And there are levels, the basic levels I can get into, that a person needs to have to really honestly do the work. You know, especially with ayahuasca, a person really has to be able to control the mardiación. They say here, dominar la mardiación, to dominate the mardiación. That means you drink a cup of ayahuasca, you get the mardiación, you can bring it down on yourself. You can bring it up or you can bring it down. This is like the bare minimum that a person needs to do. And this is first, the person, how do they do that? They have to drink ayahuasca for a lot of time, many times.
Yeah.
and in diet and possibly a few years where they get to the point where they're able to dominate the Mariación. And then they start practice on other people. You see what I'm saying? So there's a method there, and there's a basic level that needs to be there.
Yeah.
And it's also something like, let's be honest with ourselves. As you mentioned, many people, maybe they want to be a curandero and they have a few diets and they're already singing and doing ceremonies. But do they have icaros? All right. Do they have power behind their songs to really make them considered icaros, to make them consider medicine songs that are like super powerful, that can bring down the Mariación? So this is what, if you diet here and drink ayahuasca here with some of the real curanderos, these curanderos, they can do that. Yeah. So this is another like thing, that it's kind of like a level that a person need to get at. And it's very important to understand that just because, it's one thing to serve ayahuasca, but and keep the space, hold the space. But it's another thing to be able to, be a ayahuasquero, a real ayahuasquero, to dominate the Mariación, and to really not just keep a space or hold a space, but have protections, have the arcanas, have everything there in place. So this is another thing, because what happened is they open the door somewhere, and sometimes something really nasty want to come in, and people can get hammered. People can get very sick. I've seen it. Over the years, I've seen dramatic cases of people, and there have been deaths too, here in Peru and abroad, when there was, negligence involved. So this stuff, I just repeat it again and again. I don't want to be redundant, but this is stuff not to mess with at all. It's not to be dabbled with. Dabbling in mysticism is quite dangerous. It's quite dangerous. So a person, if they're really interested in eventually becoming a healer, they need to consider all of this as well. They need to consider that at some point they could enter a life and death experience. At some point they could get into a life and death experience of somebody else and have to try to save them and bring them out. All of this is possible. They could be hit hard. They could have enemies, especially if they live here in Peru or wherever they're at for that matter. There are, there's a lot of dark spiritual energies out there and negativity, and they have to be prepared to confront that. And they need their Kung Fu training, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So they have a saying here, Michael, la medicina es brava, right? So the medicine is super butt kicking. Right. And it's no joke. And they say that here, the medicine is not for weak people. The medicine in general, not just ayahuasca, the medicine in general, the medicine systems here, the traditions, is not for the weak-minded, weak-willed. They will be hammered. And this is what happens.
Yeah, it was very surprising for me, actually. So the last time I think I was communicating with you, I was at Mayan Tiacu. So I was there, I think, for about 5 weeks on a Shirwako dieta. And then I did some other dietas after that. But I was doing like a strict dieta. So I was in their tambo. I was going like 3-4 days without any kind of food, just water. And I think it was like maybe around 4 weeks in, I had a dream. And, I was kind of running very strongly with a lot of energy. And as I'm running, I see like a Peruvian looking guy kind of like looking at me in a very nasty way. And then I see like an arrow sticking from my chest. And so in my dream, I just pull out the arrow and then I just keep running. And I feel like I have a lot of fuerza. And then I woke up in the morning and I thought, wow, I don't know if that was a virote, it certainly seemed like a significant dream, but yet I didn't recognize the guy. I couldn't think of what I could have done or when it might have happened that something like that could have been embedded within me. So I just kind of thought, okay, well, I just continue to heal myself, and maybe if there's weird stuff stuck to me, it's going to come off. Would you say that the best advice for, say, a foreigner who maybe is doing dietas kind of as a part of their life is just to focus on their own healing. Of course, choosing a good teacher or being in a safe environment to heal, but really maybe not kind of becoming also too paranoid. So just healing
Yeah,
yourself is the best way to go forward.
absolutely. Healing yourself and maintaining a balance, and definitely don't be paranoid, but you need to pick and choose where you go and where you diet.
Right.
You need to choose wisely, my friend,
Yeah.
and just be cautious because Peru, yeah, there's this element here, and it's not just all, white light and butterflies and
Yeah.
peace, love, all that. No, it's there's a lot of rough stuff here,
Right.
and one has to be conscious of it, but absolutely not be paranoid, and also develop protections.
Mm-hmm.
Develop protections. The diets themselves will help give you protections,
Mm-hmm.
but there are certain plants that you can diet, like mokura, ajo sacha, pinon colorado is a classic one here that all the locals use for
Mm-hmm.
protections, right? So it's always good to do your baths and always be cognizant uh, and conscious of, if you have people giving you the evil eye or something. And something else too is really good to just keep quiet about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I recommend my clients, my dieters, when they go out of here. If somebody asks them, "What were you doing?" You don't go and tell them, "Oh, I was doing plant diets or I was
Mm-hmm.
drinking ayahuasca." You tell them, "No, I was in the jungle doing a little tour." You don't need to get into all that
Yeah.
because here they don't like the curanderos here don't even want to tell anyone. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the curanderos here, they have a house, and let's say in Pucallpa, the neighbors most of the time don't know that they're a curandero unless they're
Mm-hmm.
healing in their house. They like to
Right.
keep it under wraps. If somebody asks them, "Oh, I'm a cook at blah blah blah,"
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much envy and jealousy. Um, they want to keep it quiet. It's better to just keep it quiet than go and broadcast and tell everybody what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
I
good to be
understand.
conscious of that too. Be
Right.
conscious of the work you're doing and not really, keep it under wraps, keep it low key.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
And going back a little bit to, when you said life and death situations, um, and, whether for yourself as a healer or for patients that are under your care, are you talking about like in the Mariación or in, outside the Mariación where people may be just having like a breakdown and you need to protect them from themselves or both?
Both. It can happen in the Mardiacion, or it could happen outside. And it could not just be, let's say, a mental breakdown. It could be a physical breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, I've seen this too, and we've had it where people they lose all the force in their body
Mm-hmm.
and they need to be almost resuscitated, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and a situation where uh, they need assistance. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't get assistance, there is a potential for them to go into a very bad place,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be a physical injury or death, who knows? But these are extreme critical situations,
Uh-huh.
extreme critical situation where the person as a healer needs to know what the heck they're doing in
Yeah.
order to get this person out of it and get them back, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And in the Mardiacion, it can happen. In the Mardiacion, somebody can get, and sometimes it doesn't matter how much ayahuasca the person drink. They could drink a lot or they could drink a little, doesn't matter. They still get hammered, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you bring them out of that? So for us at Ampiri, we have, fortunately, we have hot spring, we have the cold spring, and we put icaros on the person, and we soap plate them, we put mapacho, and we do this work. And most of the time, we're able to, get the person back and get
Mm-hmm.
them, okay. But every once in a while, we have somebody that needs to go to the water.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing we have is put them in the water. We have the springs there,
Yeah.
and we put them in the water and we bathe them and we help bring their mardiacion down.
Mm-hmm.
And but again, that's not so common. I mean, we know the dosages, and we're very cautious with the amount of,
Yeah.
let's say, ayahuasca we give to our guests. So Most of the time that doesn't happen, but every once in a while, it doesn't matter how much they drink.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying here, when ayahuasca likes you, she come for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So sometimes that's the case. And, as much as you can do as a healer, the mardiación doesn't want to come down. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the mardiación can last till the next day. I had one guest, and it was okay for her, but she was weak. She had a mardiación for until 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day.
Wow.
Right.
That's a long time.
So we had to 3 o'clock. Yeah. From drinking, let's say 7 o'clock in the night, the night before,
Yeah.
it's 20 hours,
Sure.
something like that. So, but we did things to help calm her down, and she wasn't freaking out or flipping. She just had a mardiación,
Mm-hmm.
and 20 hours is quite a bit.
Wow.
So, but we were able to help her. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I say to all the people that are, in my opinion, misusing ayahuasca and playing around with fire. What are you going to do when, you get a situation like this where the person wants to hurt themselves,
Mm-hmm.
where the person maybe go crazy and they flip and they try to start hurting people, or they try to hurt themselves and maybe get hold of a knife or whatever, some type of object to hit someone or hurt someone. These things have all happened in Peru.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, not here. Not in my work, but I've heard horror stories,
Yeah.
I've heard horror stories, and people having to be eventually physically held down, so they don't hurt themselves.
Right.
So and it shouldn't get there. But what happens, my friend, is when people that are not mentally or physically prepared to drink ayahuasca drink too much, it can be dangerous. So
Right.
this is something else for these people that want to work with, let's say, ayahuasca, is to filter and to understand, to know these danger signals.
Yeah.
And the people that are at a high risk for for freaking out, because because they're not physically, mentally prepared. And it's something I mentioned before, to prepare the body. And this is something I think that's missing. Many people just want to go drink ayahuasca and they're not ready for it. They're not ready for it. And I think right now in these times, I think something like the psilocybin mushroom is more calming for people, and it's easier. It's easier entrance. It's not something that's so physically demanding. The ayahuasca is so purgative. I've seen people have to vomit for 10 times, 10 times in a night, where they come out empty. It's like a Yawarpanga Wankawisacha session, the whole night.
Yeah.
And they're so physically drained. And that's another thing, what happens if the person starts vomiting and they can't stop? You need to have tools to help them stop. You need to know all this stuff. It's it takes many years to master this work, or number of years just to get to a basic level, a number of years, and it can take decades, my friend, to master it, right? And what happens is these people, they see the need now, and they think, okay, do a few diets, but it's not so easy. It's not from the night to the morning. It takes a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah.
People who have been in this work for a while, they've certainly run into people where ayahuasca ceremonies and even plant dietas is not really helping them. So they're not getting better from plant medicine. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. This occurs, and it's not for everyone, my friend. And for me, it's an indicator that if you're doing something, whatever it may be, right? If you're doing something and you're not getting any result, or you're getting a negative result, maybe you need to rethink what you're doing, right? So for me, I mean, I tell you, for myself and Reina, we have hawk's eyes. When we see somebody that they come and they're, for whatever reason, they just don't get it. They drink ayahuasca, they do ceremony, or they do plant diet, and they don't feel anything, they don't get anything, and they're not really, there's nothing there. We are quite frank with them, and we tell them, hey, this may not be for you. And but most of the time we don't have to do that, Mike, because the way we work the way we work is people come and they figure it out for themselves. And we have a saying here, our boat always leaves at 5. So that's to say that if it's not right for you, we're not here to convince you to stay.
Yeah.
There's no point. And I'm the first person, my part of my reputation is being brutally honest with people. If it's not for them, then why waste their time? Yeah. And there are many other options out there right now in the world besides ayahuasca and plant diets. There are many other reasonable options. And I encourage people that, that are not getting any results to really take a look at themselves, do an analysis, and ask themselves the big question, why? All right? Ask themselves that question, and sometimes they could get a result, but they have so much block and they haven't found anybody or a process to really help them break things open. Yeah. That's another thing. So it could also be the teacher. It could also be the style, the protocols that they're using, or the diets, the wrong plants. There's many things there. And I'll tell you just an example, quick, from my personal experience. When I first started working in, let's say, with the public here, I ended up with a reputation. So my reputation was, I'm hardcore. I can fix you. If nobody can fix you, Gabriel can fix you. That was my reputation. And unfortunately, so back then I'm just starting out. I had didn't know a lot of people, just word of mouth. And that's how we've always been. We never got a lot of business from we never advertised much or anything. Yeah. It was all word of mouth, referral. But in the beginning, I basically just starting out, I accepted whoever came my way, right? So I'll tell you, my friend, it was a disaster. I mean, I got all of these bad cases. I got all these sick people, and many of them were coming, big surprise, from retreat centers. Yeah. They got hammered in the retreat centers, or they were taking this plant or that plant and they got crossed. They got crossed up, doing San Pedro and Cusco and Pisac or whatever, and mixing it with Cambo and mixing it with ayahuasca or whatever. Yeah. And so I have all of these type of cases, and they used to come to me, and I used to fix a lot of them. I fixed some really tough cases, like people that would have went nuts or were going nuts, going crazy, really extreme situations. And so what I can tell you from that experience is, yes, part of these people, of your question, part of it, this work just isn't right for them, okay? Part of it, they just, for whatever reason, maybe now's not the time. Maybe they need to do something else first, and then possibly, but it's not good for them now. And then another portion of these people that they've been doing this and that and not getting results or getting crossed up is they've had a bad practice. They've had bad teaching, or they've had, something wrong, bad diet. A bad diet can make you sick. These are all indicators of the person. They're not getting, not just no benefit, but actually the plant not doing them something healthy, giving them some harm. And this is something to be conscious of. And as a healer doing this work, we have to always look at the person's diets and see, are their diets good, or are they crossed up? So this, for a number of years, this is what I did. I didn't have so many clients when I starting out, and I got a lot of these cases. I got a ton of these cases, and I saw a lot of this coming from different retreat centers or other curanderos. And a lot of times it just comes down to with the curanderos here, and it's not that, because there are good ones and there are bad ones, like everything. Right. They're the good and the bad. And what it comes down to many times is these people the foreigners that come, I think many of them come with good intentions. They want to learn, they want to get healing and things like that. But what happens is they have no vision to really see who the maestro, who is he or she. Is she of a good heart? Does she have good intentions for them as well, right? So they're just absolutely beginners. So they have a lot of trust. And I think sometimes like they trust way too much, the
Yeah.
curanderos, the healers they work with. And it's not just here in Peru. I see it all over the world. You know, if you go to India,
Hmm.
you see the gurus there, and you go all over the world. You have these spiritual masters. It's always how do you say, happening in the world that you hear
Yeah.
about some spiritual master taking advantage of the disciples,
Yeah.
and and they get caught up in all of the worst stuff like money and greed and sex and this and that. And they were supposed to be like a high level spiritual master, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
they fall into the abyss with all of these worldly desires,
Yeah.
right? So this is a very common theme in the world, especially in the world of, you know, mysticism and mystical knowledge and healing. And
Hmm.
again, I make the point, Michael, I did before, that you really need to be your own doctor.
Yeah.
You really need to be your own maestro, your own guru. Like you can have teachers, but you need to trust yourself the most.
Hmm.
And I never liked that idea of, you know, you have here in Peru, you have, oh yeah, she's my maestra,
Hmm.
or he's my maestro, and my maestro, mi maestro, and this and that.
Hmm.
But if you as a student are putting too much weight, all of your trust on this person,
Hmm.
you're setting yourself up for disappointment,
Hmm.
right? Even if they're good, they're not going to bail your butt out when you get into trouble.
Hmm.
You are going to have to bail yourself out, and I
Yeah.
know that from personal experience.
Right.
So the best bet is trust yourself and focus on yourself, but with humility. This is
Hmm.
what I suggest to people.
Right.
And because I've seen it, you know, I've been to 35 countries. I lived in China for a couple years. I've been all
Hmm.
over the East, and
Yeah.
I met and I studied with some really high level teachers, Taoist teachers, that like the Taoists are very trustworthy and
Hmm.
loyal, right?
Yeah.
And what I found here in Peru is a lot of the curanderos here are tricky and they're
Hmm.
tricksters and they can turn on you, right?
Hmm.
So it's quite a contrast for me to go from China to here. But in the
Right.
middle of that, I've seen it all. You know,
Yeah.
I was once to in India. I went to the Kumbh Mela, and there was the biggest Hindu gathering there in the world.
Hmm.
Biggest religious gathering in the world. It was like 60 million people,
Yeah.
and they had all these gurus everywhere, and they had big lights and big signs, and it was just they were disciple collecting.
Hmm.
This is what they call it. They
Right.
were collecting disciples and collecting money and making themselves big and strong. And I'll go back to an example that my kung fu master, my kung fu teacher, who was also really good, gave me. And he said, because when he came from China to the U.S.
Hmm.
He was married to a young woman in Hong Kong and came to California where I met him. Um, and there were all these older kung fu masters there, Tai Chi
Hmm.
master, other kung fu master, and they were old and they had a lot of stature in the
Hmm.
community of kung fu or Tai Chi, and they wanted him to like bow down to them.
Hmm.
But he was the prodigy son of Southern Chinese Longying grandmaster, dragon grandmaster.
Hmm.
And he was a real fighter, a real brawler, kind of like
Hmm.
just beat the crap out of everyone guy,
Hmm.
you know? And he didn't bow down to anyone. In fact, he talked trash to them. And he said, you know what? If you big fat old guy, I'll kick the shit out of you. And they didn't want to stand up.
Hmm.
And the lesson there was he told me, he said, you know, Gabe, Kung Fu teacher, such bullshit. Kung Fu teacher, just always keep the student one level below. The
Hmm.
Kung Fu teacher always going to be on a pedestal and the student always down below.
Hmm.
And he gave me a lot of insight into how the student teacher relationship
Hmm.
and how it is and how it should be, right?
Yeah.
And so I went around and I looked in all these places, and I found that many of these so-called spiritual master or spiritual teacher, guru, maestros, they wanted to be just like up on a pedestal. There was a lot of
Hmm.
ego, right? And I realized that no, this is for me. It's like, what are they doing? You know, there's already enough nonsense and deception and lies in the world. Why create this lie? You
Hmm.
know, why create this? It's a waste of time. You know, so I always tell people, you know, for us, Reina and I, we're so humble. And we do all this work from our hearts. Like we just
Mhm.
honestly want to help people. You know, we see how bad the world is now
Mhm.
and how tough it is, how difficult and challenging. And we just want from our hearts to just share our work, our knowledge, our wisdom, and help people. And that's it. You know,
Yeah.
there's no guru posturing here. There's no we're up and we're the maestro. No. And unfortunately, there's a lot of this in the world. So
Right.
to go back to your question, this could also be a reason that somebody is not getting a result.
Yeah.
Somebody's not getting a result in whatever work they're doing, whether it be, you know, plant medicine, Amazonian folk medicine, or yoga, or meditation, or whatever.
Mhm.
Uh, they really, a person, I'll go back, the person need to look for the result, in my
Mhm.
opinion. You
Mhm.
should never accept, especially a spiritual tradition or a mystical tradition, never accept by just blind faith, right?
Right.
You should always look for some type of little, even if it's just a minuscule result, a little bit of improvement, then you're doing okay. But
Yeah.
you need to be honest with yourself. You need to say,
Right.
okay, am I getting improvement, or am I the same, or am I worse? You know,
Right.
we need to sit down and we need to be honest with ourselves here.
I had a question. You were mentioning how you're taking care of some like really serious cases, you know, in your early years, people who had crossed dietas, and I wanted to kind of tie that into people who are guiding dietas. So now there's people who do ceremonies, but also people who are guiding dietas for other people, whether it's like purely online or also in person. What do you think are the basic things that somebody should be able to see or to do or to perceive before they can guide dietas for other people?
All right. So first of all, to guide diets online, you know, I it's very limited. It's
Yeah.
very limited. This work is up close and personal. Like
Hmm.
again, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's just
Right.
talk frankly, right? This is a very personal work, and it's very necessary for me. I can do a consultation on the phone with someone or
Hmm.
on a video chat or something to a point, but I really need to see the person and I need to see their reactions
Hmm.
and their walking and their moving to really give them a really proper consultation.
Hmm.
Okay.
Would you say that
It's
you have to
important for me.
see them in the Mariación?
Also, it's very
Hmm.
helpful, yeah,
Yeah.
to see, to check them. It's important to understand ayahuasca was, you know, one of the principal uses traditionally is a diagnostic tool.
Yeah.
So absolutely, it's these things are very important. So when we start talking about online diets and this and that, it's something new. And I understand like people want to do this work, and now right now it's difficult to travel. They're stuck at home.
Hmm.
So I think if a person to do this type of work, if they're qualified, to give the person, a potential dieter, just the basic rules and regulations, you know,
Hmm.
how to, as we talked before, to open a diet, close the diet, what they can eat, what they can eat, also how to connect with the plants, these type of thing. That part is not complicated, but the nuance, for example, the work when you work personally running a diet, the
Hmm.
nuance is totally different. So the
Hmm.
nuance is what do you really see and what do you see as they start going into the process,
Hmm.
right? So you do, for me, you know, do initial consultation, and then I start the person usually like on a cleansing regimen
Yeah.
and start giving them cleansing purgative plants and see their reaction and see what's happening and then move them on. And it's a gradual process and it's kind of like open-ended, you know, it's not strict and
Yeah.
confined. It's somewhat like we're on the fly. It's more improvisational where we're just seeing and observing and reacting, right? And this is really, for me, this
Hmm.
is the best way because sometimes you need to make adjustments or the
Yeah.
person is not going to get a result.
Right.
And it's important for me to, you know, I start them on the process and see and check up on them and see as we're going and make sure I'm always checking to see that they're going somewhere, right? That they're going somewhere with it
Hmm.
and they're getting some type of result and these type things. So again, the
Hmm.
people that run a diet personally need to know all this.
Hmm.
And let's be honest with ourselves. It's something that takes years. Imagine if you take you a number of years to be able to serve ayahuasca. How much diet should you do to be able to run a diet or to be able to offer a diet?
Right.
And it also goes like, there are some people, go back to another question, some people are just naturals at this work. Some people are naturally gifted and many people aren't. So this is also a consideration. Some people come from a background of healing, and that helps. Like, let's say you have someone that's an Ayurvedic specialist that studied Ayurveda, or they the folk system of India, the folk medicine of India, or they studied other Chinese medicine, or they studied other healing system, right? So for them to graduate from there and come into the Amazonian tradition, they would have a kind of like a head start, a big time head start on somebody that's just starting, But these things take years to really to develop and understand. And I will also say that I noticed that I'm not online much. I'm in the jungle 99% of the time, but my associates tell me they tell me that, with the pandemic, people are offering diets online and things like that. And I hope that, because it's kind of new with the pandemic and all that, all of this, I hope that they're just doing the right thing. I hope that the idea is like the Hippocratic oath, do no harm, do no harm first. That's it. So, but again, when we start going into this stuff, it can be a little tricky, and it could possibly be dangerous as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It could be a little dangerous. I see, when I hear these things, I think, okay, but again, we're deviating from the tradition.
Yes.
The tradition is up close and personal, and even for that, I'll make a comment on that as well. That in the old days here, the people from the village would come to the curandero. They knew the person from the village. Also, the person from the village would go back to the village, and they would still be there. So if something went wrong, they're in constant communication, and geographically, they're not so far.
Yeah.
But if in the case of, let's say, a foreigners coming from far away, we don't know them for so much. They're arriving, they stay for a month or whatever, and then they go back. So it is a little bit different. So even in the situation where people come to Peru and do a diet, it is not, it's not how it was, in the old times in terms of the tradition. It's a little bit changed because people, unless they come and stay for a while, but generally speaking, the person finished their diet and they do a post diet and they're okay,
Right.
It's not so tricky, it's not so dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So this thing with the online diet and all that, maybe it can open up potential problem, and that's something to be aware of.
Right. I wanted to ask you actually about, I heard that you may have recently done a really long dieta, almost a year. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Just speaking for myself, I haven't done that many dietas, but over the years, I would say almost all of my dietas have always involved a really strong process or a series of processes, like healing processes. And so the learning that comes from the plants, whether it's just simply receiving what you would call the mariri, or the fuerza of the plant at the end of the dieta, or maybe receiving an arcana, or receiving certain learnings that you're not quite sure what it is in the dream, but then it happens. You start doing it in ceremony within the Mariación. So all of those learning lessons have come after very strong healing encounters, really difficult. And it's just always been like that. So I'm wondering, are you still going through that as well? Where when you're dieting, are you still going within yourself to heal, and then it's combined with the learning at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. Wow. Yeah, you're right. What you heard was right. Last year, I spent basically the whole year dieting. And even the post diet, I started in January last year. and I'm just now, coming out of post diet and able to eat anything and drink a little bit of like cooler beverages or whatever,
Mhm.
and the Palos, they didn't want to let me go at the
Mhm.
end. I just kept doing the post diet, and yeah, it was super intense. I mean, it was the longest diet I've ever done. The previous
Yeah.
one was 6 months.
Mhm.
So and I dieted one tree at the end. I dieted one tree for 4 months.
Wow.
So yeah, it was super heavy, and in the middle of global lockdown
Yeah.
and all of the hysteria and negativity
Sure.
swirling around the world, I was, what can I say? I'm blessed. I was completely disconnected from that,
Yeah.
and at times it was kind of like more extreme circumstance with limited food,
Mhm.
just really basic like rice and lentil.
Yeah.
And I raised some chickens. We have some
Wow.
Ampiri chickens, so some chicken eggs, and I ate like that for many, many months. That was
Mhm.
basically my staple diet was rice and lentil and chicken egg.
Wow.
So,
Mhm.
so I'll tell you, I still have, yes, to answer your question, I still have reaction. I had an incredible reaction after this diet where I ended up just pretty much becoming a tree, my friend.
Mhm.
I felt like they accepted me into their world or
Mhm.
something. And what happened was I lost all my desire for many weeks. I felt nothing. I felt nothing as a human or animal,
Mhm.
not even the food. I had very little appetite. I would eat, I looked at all the most delicious food, the stuff, you have fantasies about
Mhm.
when you're in a tambo, and I just had no taste for anything.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, my my woman, she touched me,
Mhm.
and she told me after, she said, honey, I didn't feel you. I
Mhm.
felt like a log. You
Mhm.
felt like a log. And this is how I was. I had a completely different perception of reality, and I didn't feel human. I
Mhm.
didn't have emotion, and my mind was silenced. I just went
Wow.
into a state of kind of like Zen, observation, and just being. And it
Mhm.
really deepened my meditation. It was quite an extreme. It was a real gift. It was a real gift that the plants gave me at the end. It was something
Mhm.
totally unexpected.
Yeah.
And I'm super grateful. I'm super blessed that I could be doing this work. It had been on my list for a number of years because I'm so busy. I don't just work at the hot spring. I have a farm here too,
Mhm.
so very busy at the farm. And so I have a couple of jobs, and the last like 8 years have been nonstop.
Mhm.
So I took it as a blessing in disguise, with the lockdowns and all that. For me,
Yeah.
I just said, okay, I'm just gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna drink some plants, and that's what I did. Yeah.
There's people who believe that, you have to do these long dietas. So, especially
Uh-huh.
if you want to work as a curandero or whatever, as a healer, then the longer dietas are absolutely necessary. Whereas I think other people say, well, it depends on the person. It depends on the quality of the dieta. So, like a month of a very dedicated dieta, you may get more out of that than maybe 3 months being a little bit like lax with it. What's your opinion based on your own personal experience and what you've seen?
Okay, so yeah, I would agree with part of what you said. So definitely depends on the quality of the diet.
Hmm.
I agree with that. So if you're in a soft diet, it's not the same as a hard diet, isolation in a tambo in the jungle.
Hmm.
If you're surrounded by people and you're talking every day to other people, it's not the same as if you're totally alone or you're isolated in a tambo, not talking to anyone. Okay,
Hmm.
so yeah, that matters. But I will also say this that yeah, I agree that if a person really wants to learn, they need to do some longer diets.
Hmm.
They need to, and we're talking like when I say longer, 2 3 months.
Yeah.
2 3 months is a good start. And we have a few students
Hmm.
that come and do like 2 months, and I think the most recent one was 3.5 months.
Hmm.
We had a student, and it's a different kind of diet.
Yeah.
So when you start doing these longer diets, it's totally different, and it cultivate a different energy. You know, the energy it changed.
Yeah.
It definitely changes. It changes the whole process change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially these long, like the old timers. You know, they say that back before there was a lot of technology in the jungle and
Yeah.
boats, motor boats and things like that, peki peki. They didn't have much to do, and they would just, go and diet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't hard for them back then to do 8 months or do a
Right.
year or whatever, 6 months. It wasn't so hard.
Yeah.
Now it's because of technology. Even in the deep jungle, you have people that get like here in Nordia, we have Wi-Fi now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of distraction and a lot of movement
Right.
and a lot of population growth. So
Right.
make it more difficult for the locals to do these long diets. But back then, they did these longer diets, and
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it to somebody that really is serious about this work to do. Yeah, to do a number of months of diet is wow. It's incredible, and it really is life changing.
Right.
And it's something else where it's in the case of an extreme illness, if the person has the ways and the means to do the diet in terms of work, family, finance.
Mm-hmm.
If in the situation of a sick person, if they can get that stuff out of the way and do a longer diet, they have more of a chance to get healing, right? And affect complete healing transformation.
Yeah.
But I will say this: these long diets are not for beginners.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I do not, under any circumstances, recommend first-time dieters to go diet for a year or go
Mm-hmm.
diet for 3 months even.
Right.
I don't recommend it at all. It's kind of like if you go, let's say you go to some website on fasting
Mm-hmm.
and you look forum or something. One time I did this, right? I
Mm-hmm.
just went to this forum on fasting, and there were all these first-time fasters saying they were going to water fast for 60 days.
Yeah.
Okay. So they never fasted once in their life. They never fasted one day.
Yeah.
And now they want to go and fast 60 days.
Yeah.
It's too much. So
Yeah.
what I recommend for people slowly, like, come do your first diet, and we have no problem 1 month diet for a first
Mm-hmm.
timer. Most people love it. Most people do
Mm-hmm.
really well.
Yeah.
Because usually like 10 days, 2 weeks, the person just getting into it, just getting
Yeah.
into the nitty gritty, and they really need a couple more weeks to go through the process. So
Right.
1 month is okay for a beginner. And
Yeah.
then the second diet, they can go a bit longer,
Sure.
they could go, 2 months or 3 months, something like that. If they're right for it, it depends
Yeah.
on the person too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on the person.
I wanted to actually ask you some stories about the Boiling River. I can share one experience that I had during one of my diets there. I think it was with Shiwako, and it was like 4 weeks in, and I had a really strong ceremony, one of these very difficult ceremonies, ayahuasca ceremonies. And then I finished, and I was walking back to my tambo, and it was like 4 a.m. I was just by the water washing myself, and I heard a woman singing in the forest. And I thought, wow, who's singing in the forest? Is it one of the people from the ceremony? But there's no path going in that direction. And then I realized it wasn't a person singing, it was a spirit singing. And so it kind of scared me. And then I went back to my tambo, and then there was way more music, which just got louder and louder. And for a while I thought, is there a party in Honoria? And it just ringing through the jungle. But actually it was like, it was music from the spirits. And then after that, I woke up in the morning, and for the next 2 months, I would say, I could hear it day and night. So I would just have to tune my ear, like maybe change the way I listen, and I would hear a melody. It would be male voices, female voices. I could hear the river, and the river had this humming to it, this very strong vibrational humming that I've never heard before. And after a while, I just got used to it. I just figured, okay, this is how it is. And it wasn't like I was receiving Icaros. I didn't feel like I was receiving these songs personally. it was just kind of something that I was hearing all the time, as if like a third ear had opened. So for me, that was really magical, really an amazing thing that happened to me at the Boiling River. And so you've been there for a while, and I just wanted to ask you if you have any really magical stories or experiences that really wowed you or stick out in your mind, having lived there and died there.
Sure. Yeah, I could give you a couple, Michael, and yeah, we'll wrap things up from there. First of all, a few years ago, we had a lot of interesting lights coming. So these were like kind of like lights, kind of like just like really bright white light, just kind of flash about in the sky. And even Reina saw it. It wasn't. There was a couple of helpers saw it, and I also saw one night. And the light was like on the treetop, and it looked like it was moving or something. And we weren't sure like what the heck are these. And after a while, they also started to come in the Mardiacion. And we consider them like the Banco Runa. So the Banco Runa is like the high level spiritual master that live in this area. And they show themselves here sometimes. So it happens to me quite frequently, actually, when I'm working in a group in a ceremony, and we have a full Mardiacion, a strong one, and I'll be doing my work, but then out of nowhere, I will see the light come, and the light will come and just show up for a minute and just and then go back.
Right.
Yeah. So Reina called them the Banco Runa, and so we see those, and Reina also saw them too.
Yeah.
So you have to consider like this area is energetically, it's a very intense place. So we're at like a fault line where I think it's the Pan Pacific plate come to the plate to go to Brazil, and there's a lot of there's an oil concession there. It was the first drilled well in Peru. There's gold. There's salt springs. There's lots of fossils. If you go into the jungle looking, you can find them. So there's a lot of heavy energy there, and it shows up. Yeah, absolutely. And just something along the lines that your story, I had a volunteer here a number of years ago, and he used to sing a lot in the water. So where we're at, the water is about 40 degrees. It goes from 38 to 42, but on average it's about 40 degrees Celsius. And so it's you can go in and bathe. And this fella, he was there every day singing to the water, every day singing. And there came a point where he had to go, and he was going to go on a trip and come back. And I think like, because he was here for like 6 months, and he was going to do the water run and stuff. And what happened was, when he left, I was laying there in the hut, kind of like half asleep, but not fully asleep, not dreaming or anything. And I start hear the singing of the river. And I heard this. It was a different language. It wasn't a native language. It wasn't Spanish. It wasn't his language. It was it was a very different language. And he kept singing, and it was a spirit in the water. There's a spirit in the water, and I told the spirit, "Hey," and it was very sad. It was very sad that this fellow was leaving. I said to the spirit, I said, "Hey, no, he's just went. He's coming back." And then when he came back, I heard the singing again. When he came back.
Oh wow! Okay.
That was really wild. Yeah.
So like Sirenita or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, kind of like Sirenita. And there was one other one, because this whole area, there's a lot of hot spring and different hot springs. Like the main one there that started in Mayantiaco, Shanai Tipishka, I think it's called, the indigenous one. That's the biggest one, but there are lots of other little like pools and stuff. And I'll just tell you, this is a wild story. It's not so magical. Had one friend of mine that was going through the jungle there, and was going up, and there's a lot of barranco. It's like cliffs and steep cliffs. And what happened was, he was like going across, and he slipped and fell and was sliding down the mountain. And he's falling down, and he can't grab a hold of anything. And he finally grabbed a hold of like one root, and he looked down, and there was a big cauldron of boiling water right
Okay.
below him. Yeah, yeah. And he looked down, and it's like boiling water, and it was deep,
Uh-huh.
and he would have been just boiled. Yeah, but he made it out of there. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
Wow.
that's how intense this
Okay.
area is. Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
intense. You got to be careful going in the jungle here.
Got lost actually, just going on a little hike into the jungle. I got disoriented and it took me like, I would say 8 to 9 hours to
Wow.
get back to my Antiaku because I had no idea where I was. So, yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate, like all your insights and sharing your experiences. I think people will find it super valuable. Congratulations on completing your 1 year dieta. I know that must not
Yeah,
have been
thank you,
easy.
Michael. Thanks for having me. It was great to share with you today and your audience. And if I can plug just our website, it's Ampiri,
Sure.
Ampiri .ninja, like the ninja. So
Hmm.
that's our webpage, and I'm sure when you publish the interview, you can put our information on there. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me and come and visit us, we're open now. Yeah,
Hmm.
Rain and I are actually working right now. We have a couple of guests doing diets, and so for us, here in the area, things are starting to get back to normal.
Hmm.
So we're very thankful for that. And we just wish everyone out there the best. Raina and I, we send our blessings to everyone to get through these challenging times. And we encourage everyone, to seek out the natural medicine, the plant medicine, have faith in that, have trust in that. This is the old traditional stuff. And for me, it's something I know works. I know it works very well.
Hmm.
And it's my best alternative to everything that's out there.